After serving in various positions in Iran's judicial system, Ebrahim Raisi entered politics and rose up the ranks to become the country's president. He was confirmed dead on Monday in a helicopter crash. Our next report tells you more about the late leader's time in office.
After hours of search amid dense fog in a mountainous region, rescuers in Iran were able to find the wreckage of the helicopter carrying Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amin Abdullahian, and 2 top officials. With this, the worst was confirmed. All on board were killed. Raisi, who was elected as the president in 2021, was for long seen as a potential successor to the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Before entering politics, Raisi served as the Chief Justice of Iran. His short term in office saw various breakthroughs at the international level, including the resumption of ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Tehran also became a BRICS member. Just days before his death, India and Iran signed a deal to develop the Iranian port of Chabahar. With Raisi's death, Iran's Vice President Mohammad Moghber is set to become the interim president. An election is likely to be held within 50 days. Meanwhile, tributes from global leaders have been pouring in. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that he was deeply saddened and shocked. He added that Raisi's contribution to strengthening India-Iran bilateral relationship will always be remembered. UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan said that his country stood in solidarity with Iran in this difficult time. EU Chief Charles Michel also expressed his sincere condolences. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, DD India's Sarah Coates joins us for more from Tel Aviv. Sarah, really unfortunate incident that took place. Really, what latest are you getting us from there?
Yes, hello there, Sid. We do know that the bodies of these 9 people are now being brought out of this very dense forest where this helicopter crashed in the north of the country. It is understood that the helicopter that these people were travelling in was very old. It was potentially in need of repairs and new parts, but this has been obviously very difficult for the Iranians to get these parts due to these ongoing sanctions against the regime. Now, we do know that the remains of these people, they'll be taken to the city of Tabriz. It's still unclear as to where Raisi will be buried, but certainly prayers and mourning happening right now in Iran. I'll give you a picture of what's happening here in Israel. Still no official reaction from any Israelis, and it's very likely that there will be no reaction, but what we can expect is that the Israelis to be watching this extremely closely in terms of this transition period. Now, what we do need to remember is that it was on the 14th of last month that there was an unprecedented face-to-face direct contact between Iran and Israel, direct confrontation with these more than 300 drones and missiles sent over from the Iranian Republic into Israel or at Israeli territory. So certainly no love lost between these 2 countries.
All right. I'll come back to you, Sarah, but thank you so much for your analysis as of now. Meanwhile, residents in Tehran expressed their shock over Raisi's death. They called the incident tragic.
When this happened yesterday and now this morning, when the news was confirmed, we really felt as if we lost an important support and weight.
It was really unfortunate news, not only for me but for many people in this country. After all, he is the elected president of the nation. The deceased was very active. They tried to follow up on things every day, and this saddened us more.
Well, and DD India correspondent Jessica Taneja also joins us from New Delhi on this. Jessica, just now a correspondent from Tel Aviv told us that the helicopter which got crashed was an old helicopter. Now, what implications will his demise have both in terms of domestic policies and internal affairs?
Well, domestic policy, not much changes, because at the end of the day, the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is the one who takes the calls. But since his frail, health at this point and his situation not looking so well in terms of his health and conditions, he was considered as the second-in-command or someone who could take the top job after Ayatollah Khomeini. But let's also not forget Ayatollah Khomeini's son, Murtaza Khomeini, was also part of that entire process, who was looked at as the successor in case anything happens to Ayatollah Khomeini. But talking about Ebrahim Raisi and the kind of implications it would have, especially on internal affairs. Now, if you look at the situation, Siddharth, both the foreign minister and the president of the country are not with them anymore. Of course, there is a mood of sorrow in the country, given the kind of differing reports we're getting at this point. But now, soon what happens, who now becomes a president? Remember, the elections were held in Iran in 2021 and not with such a popular vote for Ebrahim Raisi in 2021. The voter turnout was a mere 41%, lowest ever since the 1980s when the elections were held in Iran. More so, within 50 days, a new president will have to be elected. Till then, the vice president will continue. And the kind of policies or the regional influence that was enhancing under Ebrahim Raisi's rule, of course, takes a backseat, including the foreign minister now. What happens to those proxy groups operating in the Middle East, both with the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in the Red Sea, and of course, the Hamas in Gaza? So what happens to that? Of course, something that now the close group of clerics will decide.
Jessica, what legacy did he leave behind, especially when we talk about the foreign policy during his term?
Yes, rightfully so. He practiced something called a resistance diplomacy, given the kind of nature of treatment from the United States after the 2015 nuclear deal was called off under Donald Trump's presidency, and more sanctions were imposed on Ebrahim Raisi in particular, and so far have continued under the Biden administration as well. Given the tough sanctions and Iran's inability to revive its economy, facing a lot of pressures, domestically as well. You saw the protests in 2019 with the rise of oil prices in the city. 2022 with the movement where the morality police allegedly had killed Mahsa Amini, one of the protesters, for not wearing hijab. So all those kept aside, he always looked for partners and revival of foreign or a formal relationship with both Russia and China. And it's significant to point out, particularly with China, because it was Ebrahim Raisi who signed a 25-year contract with China, wherein the Chinese would invest $400 billion. And in return, the Chinese would, of course, gain the access to discounted oil from Iran, since now Iran faces sanctions from the United States, and its inability to sell oil within outside the OPEC bloc as well has been very difficult. So of course the Chinese have always been out there to help, and also Russian President, where he's made quite a lot of frequent visits, and also let's not forget Iran provided drones to Russia during the conflict with Ukraine. So his legacy of foreign relations remains strong, but one that followed a resistance diplomacy and not something that was in tune with what the Americans wanted.
All right, thank you for your analysis, Jessica. We'll keep taking updates from you on this, because this is a developing story. Thank you so much. Well, India and Iran established diplomatic ties in 1950.